there has to be a reason beyond money for you to want to do this. Anytime I bring people together to learn something new, to celebrate, or to fundraise for a cause, I think about the positive human impact that I'm having both within that room and then also from what people learn in that room and how they carry it out into the world.
Events are going to save the world.
Walking through with empathy and understanding your audience, creating experiences for every type of person. I think it's those small touches that really make people feel like you understand them, you know why they're there, and you want them to come back.
Events have that enormous ability to bring people together in a way that no other medium, no other art form can. Right now, the events industry is facing a bit of an identity shift. According to recent reports, nearly 70% of event professionals say they're being asked to do more with less. Less budget, less time, and fewer resources. At the same time, expectations around impact and ROI are higher than ever. It is taking a toll on professionals. So how do we balance those expectations and maintain our sanity? Today, I brought in someone who's been navigating these challenges firsthand. Today's guest is Beth Lawrence, an award-winning event strategist and consultant with over 20 years of experience in luxury hospitality and event management. As Chief Experience Officer of her independent event planning company, Beth has helped a diverse roster of clients, including Independence Blue Cross and the New Jersey Historical Commission, build impactful live and hybrid events that drive audience engagement, community building, and meaningful ROI. Beth is also the former host of the Type A Plus podcast, where she shared practical tips for balancing business and life in busy times. She's recognized as a top 50 voice in the event industry and is known for her passion for human rights, health and wellness, arts, and culture. I'm really excited to dive into her insights on the value of events, especially the way connections made in meetings ripple out to create bigger impact globally. Beth, welcome to the podcast. It's really great to have you.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Beth, with 20 plus years in luxury hospitality and event strategy, what initially drew you into this world and what keeps you energized about it today?
I would say the through line between my start of my career and now it's the people. It's watching people work together toward a common goal, and in my role as event planner, kind of helping to facilitate that teamwork toward that common goal, but also just watching people enjoy themselves without worrying about the basics, where they're going, what they're eating, all of those details I get to take care of so that they have a wonderful experience. But to put it succinctly, I would say the thing that helps me to get up every day and do what I do is connecting people, not just one another, but to the world around them and to causes that are bigger than themselves.
That's right. So you have a strong background in both live and hybrid programming. How has that approach evolved with shifting formats?
It's funny that I don't think that the approach has changed. I think that the lens that I look at it with is the same, right? How do I create this opportunity for people to connect and kind of tune out the outside world in this time and space and be together and absorb the information? It's just that the medium has changed. So the week of the pandemic, I was looking at a very successful year, was really signed with some great aligned clients. And then by the end of that week, obviously, as we all know, everything shut down. And I really felt a lot of emotions. I was really, scared and sad and, confused as all of us are, or were, I should say. And I took a few days to recover, to feel those emotions fully, to kind of take time and space away from my clients and everyone else to kind of just get my bearings and get my feet on the ground again. And then I woke up that Monday morning and thought, my clients don't pay me to be the one that is scared and doesn't have a plan. My clients pay me to have a plan. So I knew that this situation at hand warranted more than one type of plan. it's not one size fits all. Events are not one size fits all anyway, but especially approaching a virtual event for and or campaign or activation for some of my clients was vastly different between a corporation, like you mentioned, like Independence Blue Cross, and then a civic organization like the New Jersey Historical Commission, for example. So I provided them each with at least 3 custom plans based on their audience, their existing content, their existing resources. And I help them to do 1, 2, or all 3 of those things in conjunction and create campaigns and create communities around the events and experiences that we were looking to plan, whether they were in person or at that point virtual.
That's great. There's a certain type of person that is attracted to this, practicing this business or this craft. And I think you personified that in the fact that like your immediate thought was, well, nobody's paying me to be this way. They're paying me to go and be their rock and be their resource. And I think that's like a really, like, if anybody's listening to this conversation right now, concentrate on that, because that was, I think, what makes the difference between, somebody who likes to do this and somebody who this is their natural muscle. So good for you on that.
Thank you.
So on your former podcast, Type A Plus, you shared life and business tips in sort of that bite-sized format. So how does that perspective influence how you think about event experiences? Like, are you bringing that sort of format mentality into it?
Yes, absolutely. So the Type A Plus podcast was named for being Type A, obviously, which a lot of event planners, I think, could call themselves. But also the plus is all of the things that come with that, right? The great things that come with that, being very driven, being very forward thinking, and also the negative things that can come with that, or the things that can be challenging, I should say, that come with that, like anxiety, for example, or imposter syndrome, feeling like things are too much. And I think the Type A Plus lens for me it is my secret sauce. I always used to say that anxiety was my superpower and people didn't understand why. But for me, it's very natural to respond to a situation with, how do I solve it? And it actually, my brain very naturally goes into a what's plan A, what's plan B, what's plan C, what's plan D mode. So for me, seeing the bigger picture and then being able to help put those smaller pieces together, it does take that Type A plus personality. It's not just being driven, understanding the details, loving the nuances of things. It's also taking that what if that can naturally happen in our brains and actually planning it through. What if our venue falls through? This is what we do. What if our outdoor event gets rained out? This is what we do. My brain does that naturally. So I think it just is another way of kind of explaining the secret sauce that makes me passionate about this work, but also I think very good at this work.
Excellent. And so you've spoken about the connections created at events having a reverberating impact. Can you share a story where you saw that ripple effect in action?
I can actually start with myself. So I graduated, and I'm not going to belabor this because this was a long time ago, but I graduated during a recession and I really knew what I wanted to do. I graduated with the degree that I wanted, and I knew where I wanted to go, but I knew it was taking me a lot longer to get there than I wanted to. So I worked at a venue full time. Part of my work was networking and getting sales for the venue. And I very strategically selected networking events that were in the region that I wanted to eventually be in, and were with the people that I eventually wanted to be in rooms with. And I met a gentleman by the name of Jim Kahn. He actually was interviewed on my podcast. He's one of my mentors. I introduced myself. I told him what I was doing at that point, and he asked me what I wanted to do in the future. And from that point on, everyone that he introduced me to at that party, it turns out he was the host of that party, but everyone that he introduced me to at that party, he said not only what I did now and what I could do for them then, but he also told them what I wanted to do. And as a 22, 23-year-old walking through those rooms, it was those in-person introductions that got me opportunities in the future. So a lot of my roles were from connections that I made at those events. Another great example is I was able to connect an organization with a keynote speaker who was fantastic for their first, it was an impact and innovation summit. And that keynote speaker actually was able to find a benefit between their audience and the audience of the place that they were speaking, and they actually collaborated to do networking events to bring their memberships together. So things like that, I think, just it's a testament to the fact that we are all more powerful together, whether we're an individual or an organization. I think collaboration really can open up a lot of opportunities, especially when it comes to audience building and building those connections, which is ultimately what my events are about.
And so, just as a side question on that, I'm sure you have clients come to you and say that they want to replicate that secret sauce, right? Like they understand their perspective, they have the desire. I suppose the question is, how are you sort of encapsulating that, or I don't want to say formalizing that, to create those moments of a ripple effect, right? Because I'm sure, as I said, like a client comes and says, we know that this can be a catalyst and this will have rippling effects. Is there a way that you are sort of approaching things to say, well, we need to do X in order to start that ripple effect? And is that something that is replicatable?
I love this question. So I would say that there's three different things when it comes to the secret sauce. I think it's knowing your audience, right? It's not just knowing the trends, it's applying those trends and the innovations that are happening within your industry and within the events industry to your specific audience. I think for me, it's a journey that I take with each stakeholder. So I walk through literally or figuratively in my head the entire event and pick out the pain points. So is there a time where we have a networking event, but we don't have enough refreshments? Or is there a time where we have a bar, but it's in the hallway where it could create a bottleneck and that's not a great experience, and that's preventing people from going and experiencing that portion of the event? Another thing that I always do is called whether I name it or not, I do a 5 senses of your brand analysis. So when all of your senses are stimulated, this is just, psychology, it's like Science 101. When all of your senses are stimulated, it's much easier to create a well-rounded memory. It's much easier for you to be immersed in the experience. And so looking at their organization, what makes sense to serve as when it comes to food, the smells and the tastes that we're going to be giving your guests. When it comes to textures, to depth of colors in the room and different textures of linens, different textures of maybe soft seating and hard seating, different levels that you're looking at in the room, different types of design. And it's also understanding that people not only take in information differently, but they take in interactions differently. So there's introverts, there's extroverts, and then there's ambiverts. There are some people that no matter what you do, they are not going to want to do that icebreaker. They're going to find an excuse to go to the bathroom. They're not going to stand up in front of a room and tell you a fact about themselves. They're just not. But there are opportunities to maybe create those passive ways to get people to maybe interact with each other that don't feel as daunting, whether it's, creating little matches opportunities where it's like your A and your B, go, find a B. Or if I've done something, for example, where you put subject matters or you put hobbies on a button and you just put like canoeing or concerts or graphic design or whatever it is on a button. And that's just a passive way to see what people are interested in. So it's a conversation starter without it being stand up and tell me something about yourself. So there's the three different things, again, are walking through with empathy and understanding your audience, building an experience that touches all of the senses in a way that makes sense for your brand. And then also creating experiences for every type of person, every type of taking in information, and every type of the ways that people interact with one another. I think it's really important to understand that we are all different, but you have to create that excellent experience for everyone. So what does that look like? And that also lends you to thinking about accessibility, thinking about dietary restrictions, thinking about different ways that people take in information and also take in the physical experience, and making sure to design your event accordingly.
Excellent. So, going to talk about the industry a little bit. From your point of view, what's the biggest challenge facing the events and meetings industry today, particularly considering things like the uncertainties around things like tariffs or international relations?
It's heavy. It's a heavy topic. I think it's interesting for me because coming into the industry around, in the early 2000s, but really graduating into the career portion of the industry in 2008, 2009, there's never been certainty. I don't think I've ever been in an event world where there was certainty, because as soon as there felt like there was certainty, something else would happen that would change. Now, what I think we're seeing now that's very, very different is there is typically a blueprint, at least for the next several years or several months, right? And I think right now what's happening is because there aren't firm decisions being made on a lot of the sides when it comes to tariffs, when things are being pushed back, they're not pushed back, trade routes are being open, trade routes are being closed. There's so many things that are uncertain. I think really the biggest challenge is that project management and delivering on the expectations on time, on budget, and with the resources that you were given, because time and budget are finite. There's nothing that we could do about the fact that if you need 6 weeks to ship and we're 2 weeks out, you can't get more time, right? But what you can do is talk to your vendors early, really understand what their pain points are and understand what success has to look like for them now, and readjust your own expectations. So as the project managers, essentially, we have to really be the one that understands all of the sides and bring them all together to say, okay, this is what success looks like. And here's what I need to give you when, and here's what you need to give me when, in order to deliver on these same expectations that may have been easier, may have taken less time or less resources before. So I think we always have to be ready for pivoting to virtual, pivoting to hybrid, figuring out menu changes based on what's available. And it's really just taking those limitations and saying, okay, we're in this new box now. What does planning look like in this box?
And so how are you advising clients as to navigate those challenges while still delivering on an exceptional experience? Like, is there a lot of radical things? Like you just mentioned shifting to hybrid or shifting to virtual, which, at post-pandemic, we're some of us are like, thank God we went back away from that. And now we're hearing this quite a lot that like, well, maybe that's a good consideration right now. Are you like, do you feel like there is more of a sort of like outside of the box thinking that you have to advise your clients to navigate this right now?
Yeah, I think people are inherently thinking outside the box now, which can be great. But I think sometimes I have to help clients not think in extremes, right? I think sometimes the fear can lead us to say, oh, we got to take the whole thing virtual, or we got to eliminate this meal altogether. And it's like, okay, maybe if this speaker or if this portion of attendees can't come in person, how can we still deliver them a similar experience? Can we have a little micro pop-up in the area that they may not be able to travel from, where they all watch it together and then we facilitate a discussion? Can we have a speaker come in virtually? I've had speakers in the past, and I've talked about this on my blog, with this administration's previous administration, get stopped at airports because of travel bans and other things like that. And we had to quickly set up a live stream in for that speaker. But I think it's really also talking to them about what are the most important aspects of the event? How can we nail them down as quickly as possible? And then also working with the vendors and saying, like, what changes are you seeing on your menus? Do you think there's going to be price increases? And then working with lawyers and legal to say, okay, after this date, you cannot increase our price, or trying to just make everyone it's all about managing expectations and making sure that everyone is on the same page. And so with my clients now, it really is a bespoke thing. With each client, it's going to be different, but we have so many more tools now. It's just identifying what tools are truly going to work for the client at hand, as opposed to like, well, maybe we just need to do a fully virtual conference. And it's like, whoa. If your audience is not prepped for that, you might lose all of them. Let's see how we can get that hybrid in, or let's see how we can create smaller experiences across the world versus one large experience or something like that. So there are times where we have to change the whole focus, but I always try to have that North Star of the experience and how can we truly deliver on that experience, not only for the attendees, but also the sponsors and your partners and leadership and everyone that's counting on you to make the event a success.
Yeah, I love that emphasis on the, and if I can paraphrase a little bit, just like that, start with why. right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the format does, like, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it, like, because it does absolutely impact the experience.
Mm-hmm.
But starting, like, we hear this from clients all the time, like, hey, we want to go for fully virtual, and I keep probing on the why. Why do you
Mm-hmm.
want to do that? Like, why does it matter?
Right.
And a lot of the times the clients come back and we're like, well, we don't really know why. We just feel like we should.
Mm-hmm.
And because it'll be, cheaper. Well, it's
Yeah.
not actually cheaper. Okay. Well, then we should do it because of environmental impact. It's like, okay, but like there's other ways to do that,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so on. So it's like, I really, really want to emphasize to the listener, like, start with the why. And then those, like, what I find amazing about starting with why is that everything else starts to fall into place, because
Yes.
we can get overwhelmed with how much choice there is. And to the point you just made about formats, post pandemic, we're in a place in this industry where we absolutely know we can pull off super cool virtual, super cool hybrid,
Mm-hmm.
super cool completely live. Well, what's great about this time is that we have those choices.
Yes.
Whereas 5-6 years ago, there was no choice. There was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, we just like, go rent a hotel ballroom and put some stuff in it and make the experience.
Yeah.
And now I love being able to tell clients that, like, oh, actually this message and this format, like this why really suits a virtual broadcast thing. Let's do that and do it super well to gain your audience, and integrate it into a broader strategy that will eventually get them to the cool ballroom in Vegas,
Yes.
where they have an experience. But like, anyway, so that was my little rant.
Planning a multi-day event or conference? Then you know how chaotic managing show content can get. Version issues, last-minute changes, and the post-show scramble to send out IMAG recordings. ShowSync is built to fix that. It's your central hub for managing presentations, media, and video recordings across your event, without the mess of cloud folders or lost file links. With ShowSync, your show content stays organized, your crew stays in sync, and your post-show video files are delivered faster and cheaper, so you can move on to the next big thing without chasing down drives. Learn more at showsync.ca, because your content should work as hard as you do.
Enjoying the show? Don't miss a single episode. Follow Production Value Matters wherever you get your podcasts. And for bonus content, tools, and event insights, head over to productionvaluematters.com and subscribe. Stay sharp, stay inspired. Production Value Matters.
With so much focus on things like ROI, engagement, and community building, what are some of the strategies you've found very successful in hybrid event design?
Hybrid event design is challenging sometimes to figure out how to create the same impact as an in-person event. I will not lie that it is just really easy. I would say that it's always starting with that why, but it's also starting with the who. It's starting with, who are your audience members? Where do they live? What's their day to day? What demographic are they? Are they really engaged online? Are they kind of engaged online? Also what their appetite is for hybrid and virtual events. If all of their events are virtual and hybrid, it's really looking at that competition, figuring out how we can elevate ourselves. And also using a lot of the already available online tools. So for example, if a client has a really, really active Slack channel, why are we not using the Slack channel to create conversations before the event, during the event, after the event, do polls, get content in front of people, ask people questions about the type of content that they want to hear. Really also figuring out, when it comes to sponsors, how we can really deliver on their expectations. That has been actually one of the challenges that I have found, even after the pandemic. I've had some clients do some really creative things, like doing, simultaneous deliveries or drops of meals that were sponsored by someone all at the same time when they're at a virtual conference and we all ate together. That was really, really neat. It takes a lot of coordination. So it's also, what resources do we have? What is the sponsor giving us? Why are they giving that to us? And how can we create these meetings, or how can we create the opportunities to go to the landing page. And also it's about figuring out which tool actually works. Like I said, there's tools that you're fully virtual reality. You're in a, it's almost like a video game. If you give that to someone my parents' age, they are not going to understand. They're not going to pick it up. They're just going to walk away. It's really understanding like your client's appetite for those hybrid events and figuring out how to replicate the effects or the impact of the in-person on, in a hybrid sense. So making sure that the folks that are hybrid feel as bought in as the people that are in person can be extremely challenging. But I think it's also, again, it's a new container. So we have to create opportunity within that new container. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, no matter what the format, what's one overlooked element that event professionals should be prioritizing to deepen that attendee connection?
I want to say personalization, but it really comes back to understanding your audience, right? Because even if you don't have these tools that we have available now, these great AI tools and other things that help us personalize the attendee journey, something as simple as going to a breakfast and having a gluten-free option and a vegan option, that just shows me that you are thinking about people. I think it's those small touches that really make people feel like you understand them, you know why they're there, and you want them to come back. And again, if I have a gluten-free option that's already in the line, I'm not thinking about having to go figure out what I'm eating for lunch, for breakfast or lunch. I'm talking to the person next to me in line. I'm hopefully finding a seat, and then I'm making those connections. So I think it's those little moments and doing those small things that show that you understand your audience, and not your audience as a broad stroke, but your audience as individuals. Do they typically come on site with their laptops and always have to go out into the room, in the halls for meetings? Okay, maybe you have a lounge or a meeting room that they can use so they're not wandering around or trying to find Wi-Fi somewhere. Those small touches of really understanding and putting that human touch on a lot of the technologies that we have, I think is what's going to really extend the event planner's value beyond a lot of these tools that we're seeing today.
Yeah, and the thought that keeps on popping into my head as you're speaking about that is, I'm sure that there's a listener going like, yeah, understanding those personalized touchstones, and I think that maybe they might feel overwhelmed or at a loss where to start with that process. And all the thing that keeps on popping into my head is like, just ask. Like
Yes.
Just to go on to what you said about Slack channels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if your client has this massive community within their employee base and it's all Slack channels and everybody's slacking all day long, jump in and ask like, what was the worst part? What was the best part? What was what would what do you want, right? And just to reemphasize that again, like I think. I was having a conversation with my 13-year-old in the car, and I found myself doing a dad moment where I did the classic thing where I said, well, you have one mouth and two ears, and you're supposed to listen twice as much as you talk, right? And it's suddenly hitting me that that I think if anybody's listening to this and going like, oh, I really want to do that, but where do I start? Like, just ask. Ask as many questions as you possibly can.
Yes. And that, just one more point. If you ever looked at my LinkedIn, my polls, 90% of them come from client questions. Me even just asking, for example, do you drink decaf coffee at all? That was actually a question that a client asked me, should we be ordering decaf coffee? So even if you get general answers from your link from general responses from an audience, it can still inform, along with research on what trends are. For example, with the gluten-free option, at least 30% of the world eats gluten-free. There should be 30% of the options that you have for most events should be gluten-free, as an example.
So you also specialize in stakeholder experience and logistics. So how do you balance the often competing demands of a flawless execution and that meaningful engagement?
I think it all is one and the same. The flawless execution has to include that meaningful engagement. Otherwise, the logistics aren't on par. So I am blessed to do a lot of, to be the person that typically communicates with sponsors, speakers, and really helping to navigate their experience from, yes, I will speak for you, yes, I will sponsor you, through onboarding, through know before you go, through the on-site experience, and then also guiding them afterwards. And one of the things that I think is super important is understanding that they are also people, like that they are also just, I put all stakeholders on same playing field. Yes, there's VIPs, but attendees invest in your event, sponsors, partners, everyone is investing something in your event, speakers. So it's also about making sure that those onboarding communications are really tight, that they point them just to what they need to know and not anything else, and that you understand their journey as different from an attendee journey. But that it's also one and the same. It's almost like you have to think about it as a person who's attending the event on behalf of a company, and then as the company. And so it's all about taking what we talked about in the sponsor onboarding, in the sponsor, in the sponsor deck and the custom sponsorship that we create for them, and making sure that when you put the roadmap together and the timeline together and the sort of customer experience together of the event, you're thinking of where that sponsor can be peppered into your logistics to make it look seamless and not feel like your customers are being sold to. So I think that's also an interesting dynamic. So for me, the logistics and the stakeholder experience is one and the same. It's just thinking through those different stakeholder personas and what they actually need, and then figuring out where it most naturally occurs within your full event plan.
So can you give me an example of a complex logistical challenge that you solved in a way that enhanced the overall event?
I would say probably in my early days of freelancing, I had a client, I actually wrote about them on LinkedIn today, that they were a yes client. They sold sponsorships and basically gave the sponsor whatever they wanted and said, we will make it happen, which can be great, right? That's a great tactic when it comes to sales and building relationships. Then when it comes to feasibility, it's really much more challenging to get it done. So one of the things that we had, it was a very, very large sponsor. They just happened to come in at the last minute for an inaugural event. And it was a citywide, and they wanted to do a bar crawl. And I mean, that's a challenging thing to put together just as in and of itself, let alone as part of a citywide convention. So I was able to engage the Convention and Visitors Bureau, local economic development organizations, select the right location for this bar crawl, figure out the transportation, get all of the signage together in 2 weeks, and get a sign-up sheet together so that we knew how many people were coming. It wound up being one of the most successful aspects of the event. Was it a challenge to put that together? I mean, it was like 20 hours a day at some point on the phone calls with these people, but it was really about like, how much is this going to enhance the experience? Why are we doing this? And how can we deliver on this easily, effectively within budget and within the amount of time frame that we had? And so that was an example where it created a great experience for the attendees, but it showed a sponsor that we could kind of do the impossible, and they wound up signing on for multiple year contract after that.
That's fantastic. So you're very passionate about human rights, health, arts, and culture. So how did these passions shape your work in the event space?
I would be working with the organizations that I work with, I think, on a volunteer basis if money wasn't an object. I look at the events that I help plan and organize and support as really a micro ripple of the world. And so if I can bring people together around, for example, local nonprofit news and journalism and how important free speech and free press is in the United States, that creates a positive impact on the world, just having those people within that container and then bringing it back to their local organizations and bringing it back to the world. If I look at an event and I can see how my values are reflected in it, the vision comes kind of from within in a way that I can't even really describe. I can see the whole picture. I can see the event. I'm already bought in. That passion for human rights is what drives me to get these humans together in a room, because I believe that when we learn from one another, we see that we're much more the same than we are different. And I think learning from one another's talents, but also our experiences, is a way to have a positive impact on the world. So anytime I bring people together to learn something new, to celebrate, or to fundraise for a cause, I think about the positive human impact that I'm having both within that room and then also from what people learn in that room and how they carry it out into the world.
Yeah, I posted something on LinkedIn. I'm going to say a couple of months ago, depending on when this is going to air, that I made a bold claim that I think events are going to save the world, because I think that they are the front lines and the antithesis of what has been a consequence of the post-pandemic era, right? Where everything was separated and isolated, and there are, however you want to see this, there are people who are self-interested in continuing that and benefit from that continuing. And I think that events have that enormous ability to bring people together, to build communities in a way that no other medium, no other art form, no other medium can. And so, look, I 100% agree with you. And I want to emphasize that, I like being on the front lines. I like finding those opportunities to and the best part is yes, it'll look super cool. There'll be a cool LED screen. The food will be fantastic. It'll the best artist in the world. But what's more important is that there's going to be 5,000 people in a room together. And the only way to stop the antithesis of that is to bring those people together.
Yes.
So what advice would you give an event professional who wants to bring more purpose and authenticity into their events or into their work?
I would say figure out what aspect of the event industry lights you up. Why do you want to bring people together? So for me, the first time I went to a concert, even though I don't produce live music concerts now, first time I went to a concert, I have never felt anything like that in my life. Just knowing that tens of thousands of people were there to see that one artist, and then following how that artist created community in between those concerts. The artist that I'm speaking of has been going on tour for decades and still has fans that travel around the country with them. And so for me, that getting into a room with an artist and the people that love them is always going to light me up in a way that I can't explain. Also, going to really cool, unique venues, I just start to paint that picture of what the event looks like. For some people, that might be seeing a really cool sign or a really cool flyer invitation, and you want to do that. You want to have that aspect of your design. I would say there has to be a reason beyond money for you to want to do this. You are going to, especially in this industry, you're going to be working long hours. You're going to be working when a lot of other people aren't working. You're going to be facilitating celebrations when you'd rather be attending them. So it's about what makes it feel less like work and what makes it just feel what makes you feel more connected to the world as a whole. That's what I would go pursue. So for me, the logistics, making sure that people have what they need so that their experience can be flawless, and also walking through the experience with the lens of how is everyone going to receive what I'm planning. It's just so interesting to me. And so I think I would say you just have to find what lights you up about it and keep chasing that.
Yeah. And I'm going to reemphasize that that's worth more than the money. Right. That's a very inspirational thing. So if someone is feeling a little overwhelmed planning events right now, what's one mindset or practical shift you'd recommend to help them regain that focus?
Well, I definitely love this question. So I am a person that I very easily can see the end result, but sometimes I can't, especially if I'm really excited about something, I can't see the steps to get there. So I would say just focus on what you can do today. Write a list of 3 to 5 things that will get you closer to that vision, whether you are just in the idea stage and you're writing down who, what, where, when, why, or you're saying, I have to pick a venue, I have to find a keynote speaker, and I have to look for a DJ. Those 3 things, pick the 3 things that are going to move the needle today, and 3 to 5 things, and just concentrate on that, because I think sometimes it can feel overwhelming the farther that we look in the future, especially with all this uncertainty. So just thinking about with what I know today and with what I have today, what can I move forward today? And then that is a great way to not feel overwhelmed. Don't put more than 3 to 5 items on that list, because if you put 50, you're just going to feel unaccomplished.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it goes back to like some, I'm sure you've had a business coach in your life at some point who like, you start talking about success comes from time parsing, right? Like do one task for 2 hours and complete that task and then move on to another, versus as you just pointed out, I think a lot of people go like, oh, I want to put on a festival concert, and like, oh, I got to think about permits and staging and food and beverage and security and permits and yada yada. It's like, okay, first get a band, like just get a band, and then do the next thing tomorrow, right? Okay, so what's a trend or development in the event world that you're excited about heading into the last half of 25 and into 2026?
I really like the trend of micro events. I don't know if you're seeing this, but more smaller events are popping up, more curated audiences. And I'm really excited to see how that evolves end of 2025 coming in through to 2026, because I think, I'm not saying gone are the days of the trade show. I think trade shows are extremely valuable. I think the large gatherings, like we've said, getting that many people in a room, like the energy, there's so much value there. But I think those smaller events, we're finding that people get a lot done and they leave feeling so accomplished, whether it's just developing deeper relationships with a curated audience, or it's feeling like they're not so alone, specifically with like leadership roundtables and things like that. And then I think also, obviously, AI. I mean, everyone is excited about AI. The thing that I so vacillate, because I love the technology. I think it has so many implications, but I also think about the planet. So I'm interested to see, as we continue to apply AI to all different aspects of our lives, both personally and professionally, how we also look at the broader impact of the tools that we're using and really weigh the benefits with that impact. So I'm really interested to see how that shakes out in the next 6 months to a year specifically. But I think that it's just the beginning of what we're seeing with that. So very, very interested to see how that goes.
So at the end of each episode, I'd like to ask each of our guests like what they think is actually valuable in event production versus what you think is a waste of time and money.
Ooh, that's really hard, actually.
I like to do the zinger at the end.
This is really, really hard. I think unprogrammed time is a lot more valuable than we give it credit for. I love a tight agenda. We all love a tight agenda, but I think it's very, very underrated to really have ample time where people can talk to one another. 15 minutes just isn't going to cut it at the end of the day.
Well, that's traffic time, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, it's Grand Central. Like, most of the sort of corporate business events, you work in that 15 minutes and it's like transfer time. Like, get everybody out of this room into 12 other rooms.
100%.
And make sure that they get coffee. Right.
Right. And then hope that they meet someone along the way. And I think the waste of time and money, I don't think in every case, but I think in some cases, are the event apps. I've personally used event apps with clients and found that the impact wasn't what we thought. So I'm first to admit that. But I think sometimes we hear that a technology is available and we think I have to apply that to my events. And again, why? Why and who are your audience?
I 100% agree with that take, to be honest. That not that I don't like, it's funny that I think an event app is, as you just said, like everybody has one, right? And I would be shocked if I went to an event that didn't have an app. But I also think it's way overhyped. That it's like, oh, get the event app. It's like, okay, but why? Like, what do I like? Really, I just need some information. I need to understand what the schedule is.
Yes.
And cool. So, like, if anybody's investing like 60% of their experience budget in that, I go, ooh, that's a waste of time.
I agree, especially when you think. Yes, when you think of people who, you think of the way they sell it as push notifications and all that stuff. What's the first thing you do when you download an app? For me, it's no push notifications.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like there's inherent true value for some, but for others, like if your audience doesn't want one more thing on their phone, doesn't want to make another account, or is just fine to stay connected on Slack or LinkedIn, figure out a way to benefit from what's already going on, as opposed to investing so much money into a new tool that might not be used.
Absolutely. So Beth, thanks so much for sharing your insights today. Your perspective is an important part of how this industry continues to grow and change. So thank you again for showing up on the podcast today. So if you have found any value in this episode, please like, follow, and subscribe to Production Value Matters. And you can always go to productionvaluematters.com for past episodes and more deep dive resources on all the subjects we talk about on the podcast. Beth, thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Production Value Matters, the business events podcast, is brought to you by Byrne Production Services. To learn more about Byrne Production Services and how we can achieve your business goals, head over to byrneproductionservices.com. Thanks for listening.